So, first, it's very exciting for me. I think it's very exciting for the oil heating industry that we are back in business. This was probably the hardest grind that I can imagine the last 4 years, and it's been terrific, the support of this industry of keeping it going, keeping the faith and keeping it going. I want to thank Michael Devine here for helping out, for getting us with some Midwest support in the middle of the process as we were coming to the final throws. That was a nice help from that side of the aisle, so really appreciate it. The one thing that we start this with research and development, the big news is we're back in business. The bad news is the industry, the amount of gallons we sell is much lower than we did in any of our peak years. So we're going to be doing like an $8 to $9 million a year program into the future, which is still good. I mean, I will never look askance at $8 or $9 million. Never have, never will. I can promise you that. So we're going to be coming back, but the other part of this is research and development is going to be a much bigger part of our program into the future. Congress stipulated that. It's part of our name. I think a lot of people in the industry see there's more need for that because we need new products. We need to move the future forward. We can't just be advertising with cute girls or dogs or whatever else. That's not what's going to help this industry. It's new products. It's new technologies. And what we're doing here today is part of that process, so we appreciate that. That's key to our future. We anticipate that our research and development spending will be about $3 to $4 million per year. As part of that program, that will include looking at new burners, looking at new furnaces and boilers, new controls, all of those things really important. Biofuels is obviously going to be a very big part of it. I think that the new fuel that we have here, catching up to greenhouse gases, is something that's really critical to our future, and we need to be, NORA and the industry need to prepare for our future. I don't know if many of you, I know Allison was there and a couple at the conference we did at Brookhaven, I think this was mentioned, but in the EU and in England currently, Denmark is banning heating oil now. England is banning heating oil effective 2025, and all fossil fuels are banned as of 2050 in the EU. Whether they will come to that or not is something that we don't know, but clearly it puts a lot of pressure on the heating oil industry there. The biofuels is something that we can do to change that future for us. And clearly America's not the same as EU and in England, but these trends can develop. As somebody who's a lobbyist, I always said, bad ideas spread like wildfire. It's a good ideas that die in infancy, so we need to be careful of that. So it's quite a bit of money we're going to be spending. As I said, we're going to be doing core research, which is what Dr. Butcher's been coordinating and doing with us, and a lot of our technical development, and he'll continue to do that. We look, some of the stuff that Rich Sweetser and Exergy have done, and Tom also, of comparing our fuel to the other fuels. It's always good to know where you are when you talk about your competitor, and we've done that research. What do we need as amount of biofuel to be competitive with natural gas? What do we need as a biofuel to be better than natural gas? And then what are we going to do to be a completely green fuel in the future? So we need to do that. Part of our research and development agenda is looking at bioheat as an option. One of the things that we're mandated to do in our congressional act is to look at bioheat, its current status, technical limitations, consumer acceptance, and what barriers there are. So we're going to be doing a report to Congress and then also transmitting that to all the state governments. So that's something we're required to do by next February, very important. And also, we're going to be doing consumer education in that zone of supporting biodiesel, bioheat. The other thing that's big in our research and development is transitioning energy-efficient appliances into the market. I think we all realize, again, efficiency will also be one of the things that we use as our defense when we're assaulted by public policymakers. So having more equipment, better equipment in the home, showing that we're driving efficiency is our best approach. And I think from a selfish industry perspective, if we get new boilers, new furnaces in a home, hopefully that customer is locked down with us for 15 or 20 years. When they're at that point of just converting the furnace, or it's 30 years old, we don't have much leverage versus the competing fuels. So that's something that's really important for NORA to do into the future. We did a research summit on June 3rd and 4th out on Long Island, shepherded by Dr. Butcher. And we had engineers, we had scientists, we had retail dealers, we had service managers, we had people from Germany. I think we had somebody from Canada. So we had a good mix of public policy, engineers, technical people from the companies, all thinking about what NORA should do with its research zone. And really, it's kind of like, biofuel turned out to be the top of the list of things that we thought we should do research on. And this, you can see it, barely read that by looking at, we need to be looking at a target of 50% by 2030 and then 100% by 2050. Now those aren't goals, that's not what NORA does, but we hope to help build the foundation that we can get to these places if the industry wants to be there, that we can be there. So our research will drive us to that part. And that's really responsive to the public policy initiatives in this state, in this region, which is oil heat country. As I think I've told a lot of you, but the oil heat industry is in the blue states, as we term them in the presidential elections. From Maryland to Maine, the Pacific Northwest, the upper Midwest. We are a blue state fuel. Now, Washington at this current stage will probably not do much with greenhouse gases, but your states are doing things. They do have a goal of an 80% reduction in greenhouse gases by 2050. Now, whether they'll meet that, I don't know. I kind of tell people I'll most likely be dead by then, so it's not really my key concern. But it is something that we need to set up the industry to be able to survive into that future. And by showing that we have a path forward, you're allowed to survive today. If you can't show you have a path forward, you are not entitled to live today because you can't live tomorrow. So we have to be sure that we have that pathway forward for the industry. I'm just, as a research facility, one of the things that we will be looking to doing is setting up a research facility. We're trying to think of what will work best for us, so we're looking at our research agenda, what types of technical research, fuel research we'll want to do, where should that be? Most likely it will stay in New York because they give us money, and for some reason that attracts us. So we're going to, but this is kind of just showing, this is the lab that's at Brookhaven now. As you see at the top right picture, those are the test stands that we've been doing for the biofuels research, just a variety of blends of biofuels, and that's being conducted here. And so I think a lot of us in the industry think having it under our roof will save us money and allow us to control the research better. So that's something that we're looking at now. As I said, biofuels was our top research agenda item. Field demonstration and documentation. I think a lot of the industry participants said, it's good to say that we are making a good fuel. It's good to say we have good efficiency. We need to get that more out into the community so people understand it. We need to have good evidence saying that if somebody says they have a 92% boiler and it moved from an 85 to 92, that it saved more than 7%. That saved 20 or 30%, to have that good documentation that we can. So we want to be able to prove our case, and that also becomes persuasive to both our customers, becomes persuasive to our service professionals, and our public policy makers. So clearly trying to get that better case to prove everything that we've said and we know into all those three forums is very important. Low-cost, high-efficiency appliances. We've looked at condensing, the discussion before lunch about going to the low-sulfur fuels and ultra-low sulfur will empower that next generation of equipment to make them smaller, cheaper, and hopefully more efficient at the same time, and definitely more efficient at the same time. And that's kind of what we thought the ultra-low sulfur would do for us. Now we need to take the next step of not only saying we have a much cleaner and greener fuel, what does that cleaner and greener fuel empower us to do, and how do we make the steps to make those things happen? Controls and emerging technology, is that people right before lunch talked about, or the people prior, Gary, talked about technology is also a driver. It's doing so many things in so many other areas of our lives. It's kind of like controls everything we do. Well, we have the same thing now in our industry. We have controls. We have a thermostat control. We have limit controls in the boiler. We have circulator controls. and they don't always communicate well together, and they're not using their brain to their full capacity. So trying to put all those three things together so we have a very strong brain controlling the system that can drive efficiency. Maybe these will be good, much better retrofit options, but trying to make all those push as hard as they can to get our efficiency up. Combustion and advanced burners, I'll defer to Dr. Butcher on that, which is his favorite thing. He's a flame head, just like all the technicians in the industry. But trying to really think about that, I think that one of the things, the next two, hopefully we can think about going together, fuel quality of our existing fuel and fuel quality of the biofuel. We have fuel problems in this industry. We talk about what type of aftermarket additives can be used, but we also have to be thinking about the system so it can deal with a less than perfect fuel and not shut down. I think my view, I guess, as a customer of Oilheat and also as the leader of NORA, is really thinking about how these things, particularly fuel quality and problems in the system, affect customer views of our product and things that we can definitely work on and try to improve. So all these things have to be building to that. Again, these are like, I think this is the only slide I took out of here, but we talk about climate change as state energy officials. We're doing good things in our industry. Natural gas and us are fairly competitive. If you really look at the full facts about where we are on greenhouse gases, we need to communicate better at every level of our industry. That means NORA needs to put better information together. We need to deliver it to state and public policy officials. We as an industry need to understand those things too, because if we don't understand it, as the leaders of the industry don't understand it, then how do we have, as Jeff said, your people in the basement communicating? How do they communicate if we haven't taught them and made it universally useful to them? These are the other things looking at. So from the biofuels, I'll just go through these real fast, but technical work for higher ASTM specs to higher than 20%. We got to move beyond 20%. Each of these are steps forward, and we don't just stop when we hit the next 20%. We want to get 20% resolved and then continue to move onward. Cloud point cold flow info and specs. I mean, Allison at our conference showed us what looked like a strawberry milkshake of a biofuel blend. I mean, we have to make sure that our fuel is not having problems. These are treatable symptoms, but as an industry, whether it's NORA, AMERIgreen, we all have to work to make sure that the product that we put in a home delivers 100% of the time. Continue to develop partnerships, looking at different types of biofuels is another one that we'd like to look at. Tom and I are doing a project. I got to talk to Tom and figure out what I'm supposed to do, but on pyrolysis oils, things that can be made from wood. Again, the food for fuel issues, we have to make sure that we're not taking cropland out or burning the Amazon rainforest to get our fuel, which the bioindustry has done a very good job of, but we have to continue to work on that and always pressing forward. We got to think like the cell phone industry. It's not like we can say, hey, this is where we're going to be 2 years from now, and won't that be a great place to be for the next 30 years? I don't think anybody at Samsung or Apple are really thinking that way. We always have to be pushing each step farther. B100 tanks, less spill impacts. That's obvious. We have to always make sure that we keep our stuff in an enclosure. These are some of the research topics on field demonstration. As I indicated, really focusing on a powerful tool to track and tell how much fuel is being used and how much we're saving the customer. It's kind of funny when you talk in the industry, and I'll say some of the people who try to sell products saying, oh, well, you used 20% less fuel this winter. It's like, well, that's because it was 30% warmer this winter. But you get a lot of that. So we need to get beyond that and get good data that's temperature adjusted, home adjusted, household adjusted, so we really know what we're doing on a performance basis. I'm going to let people just look at this. I assume everybody here can read this, and pretty much everybody can probably read as well as I can. But just the highlights, tankless coil analysis, I think that's something that I'll highlight, something Tom and I have talked about. We use a lot of tankless coils in the industry. You know, when I talk about the homeowners, talking about our FSA calculator, you know, for a lot of people, a small house, you know, having an indirect water heater, you know, it's a very big, expensive system, and trying to figure out a cheaper system that they can have that can keep them warm and take care of, you know, the husband and wife who are 60 years old and shower every other day or once a day. I mean, we need to make sure that we can reach those needs instead of saying, well, we can supply showers for every, you know, 5 teenagers, which is a concern to me, but a lot of homeowners don't have that concern. So we need to, that's something that Tom and I have talked about, and I think Tom has some great ideas of how we could prosecute that. And the bottom one, ULS-specific heat exchangers. Again, this is something, you know, when we have done our condensing appliances that are high efficiency, the steel that we've had to use on those, the raw cost is astounding. I think Kerr told us when they made their condensing heat exchanger, it was $1,200 per heat exchanger, just for the secondary heat exchanger. How do you have a competitive furnace in the market with materials that cost that much? So we need to look at that, and that's the ULS will be an empowerment to use cheaper materials than that. Combustion monitoring, self-powered systems. Again, you know, when we, you know, these are some of the things that I took out and find very important. Self-powered heating systems, you know, generating electricity for the home. Probably the only place that we have an opportunity to actually grow the amount of fuel we sell in a home is if we could generate some of the electricity in the home. And if we could do it with biofuel, we'd be doing it with renewable electricity, which would be a terrific thing to be doing. And it, you know, when we talk to some of the generator manufacturers, Generac and, you know, those types, they look at the Northeast as the most important market for them going forward because we have an aging infrastructure, we have big trees, and we have power lines. And probably all of you who live in New York realize this better than what I'm describing, that when the infrastructure grows down, it can be a long time. So if Oilheat had, or BioHeat had something to infill that, we would be in great shape. It's a shame we weren't in that shape previously. A B100 burner, again, very important that we have that next generation technology in place. I'm going to just go through these a little quickly. I think I'm taking more time. Education and training, as I indicated, is a very important part of our program too. I mean, I think our service professionals are the backbone of the industry. They are who our customers do. Again, we have to work to get 100% performance out of them 100% of the time. They need to be able to fix the equipment in the home. They need to understand the new technologies that are at the home and what they can do, and whether it's sell them new equipment or understand solutions. It's shocking how many people in the industry don't understand the solutions that we have. You know, I think we even did at our research seminar, people said, well, if you'd read the instruction manual, you would realize that we already do that. But we need to make sure that we're doing all those things. But we're changing our GOLD program, which has been an efficiency program. We're going to focus it on 6 core elements of the industry with the goal of having our service professional who wants to be a GOLD technician take 4 of these. Hydronics, steam, venting, energy efficiency, which is really what our GOLD program is now, looking at the whole house as a system. Air movement, that's really your furnace type of furnace area, which would be more of a southern region issue. And then advanced controls. I think we're going to, as we move through these, we're probably going to identify 1 or 2 of these that are core that everybody should have to do. Advanced controls and energy efficiency most likely being the 2 things that everybody that wants to be, I'll say, a Class A technician or a GOLD technician should certainly have those in their background. Consumer education has always been a core function of NORA. It will continue to be. Great technology, great workers without customers really doesn't have any value at all. So we need to always work to maintain and grow our customer base. We are looking at a consumer education plan. Initially, you know, our thoughts are obviously NORA has always had strong partnerships with our state associations. Those will continue into the future. The National Biodiesel Board has been putting in, I'll say, between $300,000 and maybe $700,000 into consumer education in the industry. The American Energy Coalition has been putting in I'll say between 500,000 and a million per year, and NORA I'll say would be putting in maybe 3 million or so per year. So none of us have big pots. We're not Budweiser, so we need to make sure that any money we spend is spent wisely and hopefully in a coordinated program so that we can all work together, get the same strong message out to our customers, and then highlight all the advantages and all the strengths of our fuel. So with that, I'm going to turn that over to Dr. Butcher, who's going to bring everybody up to speed on the biofuel